back to you, North Carolina.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The mayor has called the special council meeting to order. Mayor Roscoe.
Present.
Vice Mayor Kaplan.
Here.
Councilmember London.
Here.
Councilmember McCormick.
Here.
Councilmember Moss.
Here.
Councilmember Sardinius.
Here.
Councilmember Vasquez.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, we do have a quorum. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item, Mr. Mayor, is public comments.
Okay. Susanna Braun.
Good morning. My name is Susana Braun. I live in 200 Galen Drive, apartment 103, Key Biscayne, Florida, 33149. First of all, thank you for being here and thank you for having a special council meeting. I would like to have some answers on Ignacio Segurola's article on the Islander News that came out yesterday, October 19th. He says that the village manager stated that the Key Biscayne's lobbyist informed him of the opportunity of these funds and then confirmed that the funds were in the budget. In both instances, the manager stated that he directed the lobbyist to work only on the village's priorities and then rejected the need for this appropriation. Did the manager consult with the council before deciding to reject $3 million? If he did, who did he consult? If he did not, does the manager have the unilateral authority to reject this funding? The other question, the village manager indicated in a publication that he had been contacted by a vendor with regard to the appropriation. Who is the vendor? Does said vendor have any relationship with a member of the council or the administration? And last, what is the specific purpose of the appropriation? Are these grant funds able to supplement or fund any taxpayer obligations? I think that firing the lobbyist, as per council member at London, he said on a previous meeting that he served well the village. So why sweeping the dirt under the rug and take the shortcut to firing him instead of going any deeper on the matter of the $3 million that nobody knows where the funds are? Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you. Other public speaker is Luis de la Cruz.
Morning, Council, Mayor.
Morning.
Mr. Manager. Thank you for listening. Luis de la Cruz, 640 Allendale Road, Key Biscayne, Florida. So it's obvious to me that a very, very large number of our residents really don't understand what this whole process of application for appropriations and everything is like. And I think they need to listen to you, and I think that you should take your time and explain it a little bit better so that everybody understands this is not $3 million that was being approved for the village of Key Biscayne for us to use in building our more robust storm sewer project. It's a $3 million amount that was focused, and by the way, it's not $3 million. It's $3 million plus $500,000 per year for who knows how many years. It was earmarked for a particular type of project, which, with all due respect, and I'm saying this as humble as I possibly can be, I can't imagine how that project could possibly ever help the village of Key Biscayne, because we know when we're going to flood. All you got to do is look at the weather report and what the tides are, and we're going to flood, okay, whenever the things are the way they are. So that's not the problem. And that particular project may be fine for somewhere else, inland, somewhere else, but not in a coastal community as ours. It's absolutely worthless for us, and I can't imagine why the people that were working to put together an appropriation for this thing had not come to our manager and our chief resiliency officer earlier to find out from them whether they thought it was a good idea or not, which I'm pretty sure that they decided it was not a good idea. And they said, don't work for that for us. So that's $3 million plus that is being taken from, I mean, the Village of Key Biscayne is 16,000 people. We can't get unlimited funds from the state of Florida. You know, whenever we come to them, they basically say, okay, well, you already have this much, and, you know, we're going to give you this much. And, you know, those $3 million that don't do anything for us is an absolute waste of our capabilities of doing things going forward. Mr. Kilman, I don't know him. I hope that he's a very good person. I don't have any reason to believe otherwise, but this is not his best day, okay? And it's up to you guys to determine what happens going forward. What the most important thing, or one of the most important things that you have to look at, and I don't need to tell you this, but I'm saying it more for the audience, is protecting our relationships with our representatives on the state, at the state. That is our senator and our representative. I know I'm running out of time here, I think.
You are.
Okay, can I have a couple more?
Couple more seconds.
Okay, all right, so you know, I want to say one thing. I think it's completely, I read the letter that Mr. Kilman wrote. I think he's totally missing the focus here. It's not about checking a box on a particular thing that was done without the consent of the manager. You should read, and I'm sure you have, I'm saying this for them, you really need to read the application for the Senate appropriations, where everything is related to the Village of Key Biscayne. It's not, there was a letter that supposedly was attached to that really wasn't. It's not that. You know, everything was sold to the state like it was coming to us. Okay, so that's it.
Thank you.
I will trust whatever you guys do, because I know you work really, really hard on protecting us. You know, if you want to do whatever you do, I know it's going to be the right thing. Thank you.
Next speaker is Josie Valdez Hurtado.
I'm Josie Valdez Hurtado, 600 Great Tree Drive. I wasn't planning on speaking, but after again, like I have said many times before you, someone comes on and says that we do not understand. The person that wrote the letter that Susana just read is Ignacio Segurola. He was a member of this council for many years. He understands what he's asking, and the only problem we had was with transparency. This issue happened because somebody wrote an article about some research that was done from someone in Orlando. It comes to the attention of the village, the people in the village, because of that article. We intended, through the association that I belong to get answers from you. And within a week, we didn't get any answers. We didn't get any explanations. We were totally ignored. So we went to the state, which we should not have had to do if we had gotten an answer from you. So all we're asking is what's going on. That's very simple. That's very simple to understand. Something is going on and the people do not know. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. That's all the cards that I have.
The next item is other business, general discussion, status of state lobbyist contract.
Okay. The issue before us is simply accepting the letter of resignation from the firm and asking the manager to expedite this process and to do it as quickly as possible to be ready for our next the state legislative session, which starts in January of 2024. In my view, there was a misrepresentation of our position and our interest. And so we need to move on and put this behind us. This will be a distraction going into the next session. So let's accept the resignation so we can avoid this distraction in the future. To be clear, the council sets policy. The council sets the agenda for Tallahassee, full stop, end of subject. That's the way it works. That's the way our charter reads. That's how it's always been here. This appropriation was not directed to the village. It went to a Chamber of Commerce. So if somebody wants to investigate that, that's their issue. But what is within our control, what we can do is address the issue of a letter of resignation, accepting it and moving forward and having the manager expedite as quickly as possible. This is doable. I know that we can do it. We can make this transition in time for the session. So with that, do I have any other comments or motions before us?
For me, at the risk of sounding oversimplifying this situation, for me, there is a letter of resignation on the table. I don't have any reason to believe not to accept that letter of resignation. As far as what that transition might look like, I think that is under the purview and the operation of this village manager, and I would expect a clear and concise plan on what that transition looks like for the betterment of this village and to ensure that we maximize our appropriation effects, our intentions to the absolute max without any distractions, as per Mayor Orozco's comment about distractions, and that's my stance.
Thank you. Who's up there, Ed or
Yes.
Fernando?
Me. Both of us. Anyway, Joe, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
But the question is it in our best interest to terminate him now? Terminate him after the session? Hello?
Yes?
And listening to our manager, he said we'll be at disadvantage if we would terminate him now. And I think we can hear from him before we put on the.
Can't understand what he's saying.
He wants to hear from the manager. I think we all would. You want
I
to?
think he's waiting for something, so.
Can
Can you repeat?
your last statement? Can you repeat your last statement, Ed? It's the communication is garbled.
Hello?
Yeah, you're coming in and out. Go ahead. Try it again.
I'm saying, should we terminate him now or after the session? I think we should have the manager tell us what he thinks and how it will affect us.
Agreed.
Because he has advised us previously that it would be to our detriment. Does he still feel that way?
We'll get to that. Good question. Well, yes.
Okay. I'll. Since this is a discussion,
Yes.
we will discuss. My stream of consciousness goes something along these lines. The last time we were together, I had an incomplete but increasingly solid sense that innuendo and suspicion and allegations and all of that notwithstanding, there was actually nothing here. There was actually nothing really controversial. There was nothing nefarious. To be sure, having observed that, and I feel more conviction that that is the case, that this was innocent, although a misrepresentation, to be sure, a mistake. I think that's what happened here. That's what, without reading minds, that's what the dots connect for me. I don't see a scam. I don't see a scheme. I don't see a stratagem. I don't see evidence of self-dealing or ulterior purpose in any of this. The product and the pilot program, it seemed to me from having spoken with Mr. Kilman and also the manager and trying to dig into what this was really intended to be about. It seems to me in conclusion that this was not ripe for us. It had no salutary or utility effect in anything that we were planning on doing immediately. And I think the manager invoked our priorities that we communicated earlier in the year and properly told Mr. Kilman and Converge, whatever they want to do with this, it's not on our tab and we have nothing to do with it. And don't deteriorate from your focus on our priorities. Take care of our business, and then whatever you want to do is up to you. I think that's what happened. That's what he did. The effects that I see that could potentially be useful if the data set and the predictive capacity of this sensor system was better than it is, from what I understand, is maybe three things or a couple of things. One is the ability to better manage, better survey whether conditions are worsening over time. That means the intensity and duration of rain, the percolation effect for water being absorbed in the ground, et cetera. To be able to better manage or better assess worsening conditions. The second thing might be, as conditions worsen, if that's what happens, the efficacy of the phase one system might be better assessed over time before the subsequent phases are actually built. And the third, if this works better than it does now in the future, would be presumably some help in actually designing the later phases. I think the manager properly concluded that none of those potentialities are yet ripe and in fact are not even relevant right now for what we're really focused on doing. So he killed it as far as the village of Key Biscayne was concerned. The effect looks bad. There's a false statement in a submission. Mr. Kilman says it was an error. He's very sorry. It happens. The feedback that we've gotten, to my knowledge, from our legislative delegation is that they think he does a good job and they support Converge. I think that there have been some subtle lobbying efforts to try to make us feel not so reactive about this incident and just move on. So with all that said, the other part of this is, and we'll hear from Steve, I'm not sure what it takes to jettison a lobbyist that knows pretty much backwards and forwards what our priorities are and has already built talking points and advocacy strategies built around our priorities. How do we replace that on the fly in the midst of prep for 2024? I wouldn't want to disserve ourselves in the legislative appropriation cycle for this upcoming year unless there was some rather urgent necessity in doing so, and I don't see that necessity. If an investigation reveals something else, so be it. But I've done the due diligence to the best of my ability, and I find nothing nefarious in any of this.
Fernando and then Brett.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councilmember Kaplan, Vice Mayor Kaplan on his points. I think there is a lot of, missing the point as it relates to what this specific allocation would serve for. I think it's just gathering data and being able to provide early warning systems on something that we really don't even haven't even developed yet. So I agree that the whole setting of this allocation of funds is really missing the point, I think, from our standpoint practically. But I am concerned a bit, and I also see that I don't necessarily see, as Vice Mayor Kaplan indicated, something nefarious about it as well. But I do see something that I'm concerned about is really their understanding of what our real needs are, or are they really watching what's really coming for us, and what is it that we really need, the funding that we need to get our projects moving. My question is more of a practical question: is what happens after today if we decide to terminate their services? What other projects do we have going out there? What other projects are we committing funding for? What will be sacrificed, or what will we potentially lose for funding? And who could replace that? And also, I'd like to understand why are we so dependent on so many lobbyists on all these lobbyists? Why don't we increase our bandwidth internally and get ourselves better positioned in Tallahassee so we can do this ourselves better than depending on other folks and depending on potentially their mistakes? I'd like to get a better understanding of that. I don't see a lot of this stuff. To me seems a bit generic. Not necessarily this. This seems to be more collecting data and more of a regional level than anything else. But I like to understand what our potential is for getting funding. Should we let go of these guys eventually? What are we going to be able to do ourselves to continue with our projects? What specific projects are being affected? How much money are we potentially stand to lose this year? That's what I want to understand.
Okay.
Do we have what projects are we specifically depending on these lobbyists to do the work?
Okay, we'll get to that. Mr. Moss?
Yeah, thank you. So I'll try to answer the question that was posed about the article that was written to try to clarify, and I think, Mayor, you did that as well. But this has nothing to do with our budget. This is not a project that was on our radar in any way. This is a company, third party, something that's apart from us that somehow was revolved around us to do a pilot program to test their technology in Key Biscayne. The issue that I have is that, like I think many have said, is that I don't believe this project really is something that is on a high priority for us, that really can benefit us. And that's important because we're a small village. We have few resources. Any type of pilot program that comes in here, it does take up our resources. And we need to be very careful of where we put them because we have extremely strategic and important issues that we need to deal with. And we need to put those forward before testing some company's system out. So that for me is why I said this last time, is that it's extremely important that when we're going for legislative priorities, any acts that we're doing are coming directly from us, not from any third party. Now, if a third party out there got $3 million without us being the center of their study, and they wanted to come and propose something to us and say, hey, would you want us to test that? And it's something that we look over and we say, yes, that's something that would benefit us and we would like to put that as a priority. That's okay, but we cannot have us being a center of some appropriations that are happening somewhere else, and this is not even a priority to us. No, I think that it's a little bit unfortunate that we're in this situation having this conversation. This is not something that I think any of our consultants or anybody who's working for us should put us into this position. Whether it's an accident, it's not something that I'm happy to. I feel like any decisions that are made are very difficult decisions and puts us in a difficult place. So today where I'm at right now is I'm okay, and I spoke to the manager about this, but I'm okay with accepting the resignation. But I think that we should do it immediately. I don't like this idea of holding that until the end of session. I know what the consequences are, but I think that our manager needs to, immediately try to find somebody else who can start working on whatever we're working on, and we need help from council members, from our mayor, from our staff to help us with the things that we need to work on. And we move on. I think that's my gut feeling right now of where I am from what I've listened to so far.
Okay, thank you. Ms. McCormick?
Thank you. I think most of the things that I was planning on saying have been said, so I won't repeat too much, but I couldn't agree more that this project is clearly not something that aligns with our priorities. And many people have already made the point that our asks need to be very surgical and strategic, and that's what we've done. And we've been really successful. Frankly, with Converge this past year, we were very successful. But to have an extra 3 million with 500,000 ongoing for something we don't need somehow attached to our name definitely could have a potential impact on our future asks, and that concerns me. I think that when it comes to working with your lobbyist, things like reputation and trust matter tremendously. The reputation and trust that we have with our lobbyist, but also the reputation and trust of the Village of Key Biscayne to our legislative body. So I hope this was a mistake. I hope it was some kind of lapse in, I don't know what. But once you start questioning your relationship and your representation, trust is eroded, and I'm not comfortable continuing. I think that, as Brett said, this is a very unfortunate situation, especially the timing of it. To their credit, Converge, as I already said, did an amazing job for us, and I'm sad that this situation has occurred, but at the end of the day, it has, and we need to move forward. I do agree with Councilmember Moss that I think waiting, although this timing right now is understandably bad, I think waiting is worse. We have no idea what things, hopefully nothing, but we have no idea what things will continue to come out. I think it's important that we preserve the reputation of the Village of Key Biscayne and that we do it right now decisively. I also think that while engaging a new lobbyist now can certainly impact our appropriations for this coming year, we have the potential, if we don't do it now, of having 2 years impacted, right? You have 1 year now with an investigation ongoing that we don't know what will happen with things that we ask for. And then if we sever relations and engage a new lobbyist, we're now starting anew with somebody who has to learn our priorities and our relationships. And so we have potentially 2 bad years ahead of us, or maybe not as good as we've experienced. So for me, I think this is an unfortunate decision. I wish them the best. I hope that there is nothing more to this that comes out in the weeks to come. But I think I'm done and ready to move on.
Thank you. Mr. Manager, you and I have also discussed this, but it's certainly doable that we can have a transition process. I know this from having worked in this area, so I know. But you want to make your comments on that?
Yeah, certainly. I'd like to just kind of start and just kind of set the record straight. Just I want to make sure that, and not just obviously the council, but also folks listening can go back in time and truly understand, what's gone on over the last. I guess it would have started back in January. So at the beginning of last year's session, so that would have been last January, Converge offered us the opportunity, and I think we've been talking about this project, to be part of a stormwater sensor and predictive analysis pilot project. And I want to emphasize pilot project. This wasn't just only for Key Biscayne, it was one that would support the entire state. Obviously, the testing would occur here, but the outcome was for the benefit of the entire state. At the time, I told Jonathan and the Converge team that it sounded interesting, but it was not a priority of us at that time, or at this time in our movement forward with our resilient infrastructure program. I wanted Converge to focus on our 6 appropriation requests, which at the time were the priorities for the village and those that were approved by council. I didn't want to spend any time, effort, or put any attribution toward this pilot test. I wanted to keep our team and our legislators focused on our priorities. Converge then submitted an appropriations request through Representative Amnesty, who is a Central Florida representative, for the funding of the stormwater sensor and predictive analysis project, where the funding would go to the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. They would take the lead on this project and move forward with a firm to be named to support the Village of Key Biscayne in the action, but also to benefit the state as a whole. When Converge submitted the form to Representative Amnesty, they marked a box that stated that they did have a letter of support from the Village of Key Biscayne. There was no such letter. However, when submitting the form for Senator Calatayud, who is our senator, of course, they marked no in the same box. As you've heard, Jonathan has recognized the error they made and apologized for the mistake. From where I see, there appears to be no intentional wrongdoing. If we can accept that one wrongly marked form and the other one was marked correctly. It has, however, and I think that's why we're here today, created quite a distraction and disrupted to the village staff, to the council, and as well as our community. In fact, it's actually raised quite a bit of concern, not just of disruption in our community. If we can accept that the error was made by Converge, if we can then accept that Jonathan has clearly recognized the disruption his team's actions have caused, placing all of us, our community included, in a difficult situation, at this crucial time at the start of the legislative session, and this is a question I ask, and I think this is a question all of us are asking, are we able to move forward with Converge to help us with our legislative appropriations, or do we have to terminate them now and move forward with another lobby firm? Let me talk about it first from the business perspective, because I think that's what I can let you all know from my perspective. And then I think there's a second one, and I think a couple of the council members have brought it up. It's a situation of reputation and trust. And I think that's something that we need to choose as a body, whether we want to move forward with that situation. From a business perspective, without a doubt, timing is bad. The legislative session is starting now. We're already working very closely with our representative and senator. Our forums for appropriations are being done as we speak. We're already setting up some meetings with different department heads as well as other committee members as well. They have been successful, as we know, in the past. They work extremely hard for us, not only from a lobbying perspective, but also in the day-to-day operations when it comes to government affairs. They just don't do lobbying that people see during session. They also do hands-on work when we need them to work with some of our departments at the state level. If we terminate them immediately, we have to know that we're going to move forward without the full support that we've had in the past, and we have to accept a less than stellar year. A couple council members said that might be okay to accept, and I think that's a decision we have to make. If we do bring on a new firm, we got to ask the question, can they really, truly adapt to what we need to do now? Can we make that transition to move forward this year? I would say, again, we're probably going to have less than stellar results, but again, we have to ask the question in the terms of operations and then reputation and trust, is that acceptable? So before us is, do we consider this resignation? I think the question is, he's offered his resignation, but it really becomes a matter of time. Is it now, or do we offer his second offer, which is, I know I put you into a difficult situation. I like to keep you from continuing to be in a difficult situation. I offer to work with you through the coming session. That's the business perspective. Reputational and trust, I think we have to look at things in a very different way. A mistake was made. There's no doubt a mistake was made. Jonathan and his firm has said that they know they made a mistake. But as evident of this meeting and the last meeting, it's brought Key Biscayne into a situation that we weren't even involved in. And yet we're trying to deal with this in our community and the council. Does this tarnish our reputation? I think we have to ask that question. Is there more that's going on? Jonathan has told us no. I think a number of folks have done, a number of council members have done some, at least some periphery investigations, and have found that there is none. I'm at the belief, if we ever do find any, if we were to continue this relationship, we would terminate it immediately. We don't accept anything that would be illegal, unethical, or immoral. The other question is, I think is also before us, does terminating this firm have an impact on our reputation as well? And I think those are the questions we put in front of us. This is a very difficult decision. There is a business part, there's also a reputation part.
Okay.
Steve, Mayor.
Yes.
Sorry. Quick question, Mayor. Steve, can we, had a brief discussion yesterday, can we specifically talk about the projects and the money that we were, or the funds that we were anticipating to work this year through session? Can we talk numbers? Can we specifically, how much, how many projects, which projects would be affected by this if we were to terminate?
So, Councilmember, you talking about the ones going forward or the ones we last session?
Well, be both, I guess. I'm just trying to understand of the financial impact to the village.
Well, I think we know that we were able to bring in $2.85 million this past year very successfully. It was a quite good year working with Converge. And I also want to recognize both Representative Lopez and Senator Claudio for the effort that they did in supporting us. What we've laid out, and I've got it here, what we've laid out, and we've talked about this in previous council meetings. What we laid out as our priorities going into next year is the first one is resilient infrastructure support to the K8 Basin, or what we're calling Zone 1, for $1 million. A traffic analysis from the entrance of Rickenbacker Causeway all the way to Bill Baggs State Park to better understand the traffic and better understand some infrastructure we can change or better improve the way in which we communicate those traffic issues. The third one is improvements
I'm sorry, Steve, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Apologize. How much would that be? What would
that would be $250,000. Again, remember, this is what we're requesting. This is not guaranteed what we're going to get.
That's fine. That's fine. Of course, I just want to understand.
Yep, $450,000 to improve the multi-mobility traffic and safety on Crandon Boulevard. $150,000 for us requiring to maintain the one entrance in and out of Bill Baggs State Park from a road perspective, as well as providing traffic control that our police officers do quite a bit during high times, particularly on Saturdays and Sundays during big weekends. $100,000 for senior programs, $100,000 for special needs programs, and $250,000 for emergency management planning, training, and exercise for a total of $2.65 million. And then also a legislative discussion, and again, we had this discussion last year, but I think we need to continue to pursue it, is how do we address, from a state law perspective, motorized scooters and e-bike safety on our roadways. So those are the 8 items that we are going forward in our legislative agenda this year.
Okay, let's get back to the subject at hand. And Fernando, I can tell you there's no guarantee from one year to the other that you're going to get. You go up and you ask, and hopefully you get, but there's never any guarantee from one year to the other.
No, yeah, I agree that, Mayor, and I was just trying to get a sense of it because I think it's important that the public knows what we would be, what's at stake. That's all. That's all.
Okay. Further discussion? We have a resolution on the table.
No.
Yes?
No.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes. Your internet is not as good as it could be. Ed?
Hello?
Yeah.
I just didn't, when Steve made a wonderful speech, but I didn't understand what the conclusion was. Does he believe it's in our best interest to terminate him now or terminate him after session financially? Thank you.
You want to try give an answer?
Sure. I mean, I think there's really, I think it's a collective decision. I believe that from a business perspective, I think they've been very effective, and I believe they'll continue to be effective. And obviously, if they were to stay and work through the end of session is one of the options that they suggested. Obviously, we would continue to be in sync, and that would be successful, or again, as the mayor said, as successful as it could be for the village. If we decide and we choose to terminate now, I think we would accept a less than stellar year. But perhaps if the council feels that that is a trust and reputational decision we need to make, then that would override, maybe 1 year's worth of effort. I think Councilmember McCormick said it very well. Are we willing to accept a less than stellar year and move forward with someone else. It's really hard for me to make a recommendation because if you purely said from a business perspective, I think we would all say move forward. But there's a lot more at stake. You know, this is a community, a very close community. I think we are very proud of who we are and what we are. And I think we want to be an upstanding community with trust and respect. So as we make this decision, I think we have to take it all in consideration. Also take in consideration that our lobbyist has come forward, acknowledged the mistake. Whether we can accept that or not, I think that's for all us to ask. I've accepted that mistake. I've accepted the fact that I believe that we can move forward. But the question is, can the community, can the council? And I think that's where we're at. And so it's much bigger than a business decision. And you and I have had that conversation that there are two completely opposed situations here.
Okay.
Mayor, can I make a quick comment?
Yes.
All right, so from a business standpoint, I think we also have to take under consideration whether we feel that we're going to get served at 100% when we're accepting a resignation after they finish their session. Do we feel that the motivation is still going to be there to serve us at the level that we want, knowing that we're accepting a resignation or not? I lean towards that if someone's resigning, they might as well do it now and move on and not, hope that you're going to get the same level of service over the next couple of months. So from a business standpoint, I think about that when it comes to resignations as well.
Excellent point. Mr. Vice Mayor.
The fulcrum on this decision is trust and reputation, I think. Sorry. I said the fulcrum on this, that this decision rests on, seems to me to be trust and reputation. It's been observed they've done a good job in the past. They work hard for us. They do a whole array of things that benefit us in Tallahassee. The premise that's been widely suggested throughout the community is that, in effect, it would be shameful to maintain a relationship with Converge. I'll put it in those terms. It would be shameful. Being as intellectually honest as I can, based on everything that I've looked at, talked about, have come to understand from due diligence and discourse, I don't understand that premise. I don't know factually why it would be shameful to maintain a relationship with this lobbying firm. It's the difference between mendacity maybe and error. And I tend to see this in forgiving terms. And so that's where I am. I also think it's important that we be aligned and have as much consensus as we can muster on decisions like this. So that's on my mind as well. To Brett's point, when someone is, rebuked, are they going to work as hard as they did on their best day? It depends on what you think of their professionalism. I don't have a concern about reputational damage in Tallahassee because of feedback that we've gotten since this whole ruckus blew up. And my impression is that they'll do the best they can for us, but who knows? That's interpolation.
Thank you. Allison? No? Okay. We have a motion in front of us. Someone want to move the motion to terminate and do it expeditiously as possible now?
I'll move it.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion on the issue? Further discussion?
I think I'd still like to hear if indeed the question is we're going to accept a resignation. What then, Steve? what would the transition look like? So Brett made a good point about how willing they are to work hard for us if we accept a letter of resignation. And on the other side, we talked about operationally what it would mean like and what detriment it would cause to us if we have to start from scratch with somebody new. So I go back to the question at hand is, do we accept a resignation? Do we have enough information to suggest to Converge and say, we do not accept your resignation? And if we do accept it, what would then be the plan to transition us in the best possible manner?
So to answer your first question, again, I can only go by what Jonathan has told us, and that he will continue to work as hard as he's done in the past, for everything that the village would like to pursue in Tallahassee. So I have to take him for his word on that one. Secondly, so that would be the long-term transition. The short-term transition, I think if we're going to make a decision, I don't think this is something that you dilly-dally around for a couple weeks. I think if you're going to make a decision, you got to make a decision right now, because we are literally on the brink of session and we need to start positioning ourselves with our representatives to move forward. So if that is the choice, we would have to do two things. One, we'd have to up our game on what we're doing. So that would be an internal approach. We do it well anyway, but obviously Converge adds a very, very strong additional multiplying effect. The other thing we'd have to do is look for another lobbying firm, or make a decision if we want to look for another lobbying firm at this time. If we do make that decision, we'd have to onboard them.
That's what's before us.
Yeah, we would have to onboard them. They'd have to understand our priorities. Perhaps we may have to reduce some of these asks, maybe bring them down from 8 to 5. I don't know, right? I mean, it really depends on the bandwidth of this firm's capability. We'd have to build a team, and we'd have to move forward.
As I mentioned before, I still am of the opinion that the operator in defining what that transition looks like should be in the hands of the manager. And so if we're going to accept this resignation, I want you to feel comfortable that you have a good plan in place, one that is not going to be to the detriment of the village in any way, shape, or form, and that priorities are going to remain the same. I know what transitions look like, and they're not easy. And this seems to be something that could potentially cost the village more so than the idea that he may not work well for us. As a matter of fact, I would imagine that he might actually want to work even harder to absolve himself of potentially being let go. Now, let's recall, this is not us firing him. He gave his letter of resignation for a reason. What that reason is, that's in his mind. I just want to make sure what the best thing is for the village. And so while the motion seems to be, do we terminate, do we accept, and then cut now, I would say I'm not necessarily for cutting now, nor am I necessarily in favor of the village council to decide what that transition looks like. And so I would, again, err on the side of caution and allow to defer that operational aspect of it to the manager. Those are my thoughts.
Allison?
I think at this point, we can expect however we go forward, there is potential that our next year is going to be impacted. So to try to put on the manager, come up with a solution that doesn't have any negative effect on us next year, it would be amazing, but I just don't think he has that magic wand. And so I think what we have to do is we have to look at what's in front of us. I think there is real potential going forward to have asks affected by outcomes of this investigation or different things. I mean, I've said it before, it's clear what my position is, but I think that to Steve's point that we can up our game internally, we have a pretty strong internal game. I mean, we have a village manager who is kind of a take no prisoners, go up there and get it done with amazing relationships. We are so lucky to be in the position we have a mayor who this is what he did. The two of them together are really a dynamic duo, and they're not just going to be starting at zero with another lobbyist. They have all these relationships, and I have every belief in the world that they're going to do what's best for the village when it comes to going up there and fighting for what we need.
Yeah, to your point, I think we're saying the same thing. I have all the faith in them to define what's the best course of action when it comes to the operational part of this decision. That's it. You said it. I agree with you 100%. I have full confidence that our team can make this happen to the best, but our team needs to decide, in my opinion. So if we accept this resignation and Steve says, yeah, no problem, I think it's a better idea to cut now with less detriment to the village, great. But if he says to us, we'll accept the resignation, but I think it's in the best of the village to continue forward, to not have this turmoil internally and to maximize our efforts, not all of it, because we know there's going to be some, then I agree. I agree with you in that respect. I just don't want to, again, I see the manager as the CEO or the operator of village government. We've put him in that position. I think he's done a great job. I think the team is spectacular. And I think that I have every faith in them to decide what the best course of action is after we decide whether or not to accept the resignation. And I think the question at hand is that, not the secondary part.
Except it's a council decision to terminate or not. And it is before us. And I think given the trust and reputation aspect of it, and Frank, I like the way you use a physics term to describe how important that is. We need to make that decision when it happens. And I understand you don't agree, but that is where we're at, and that's the motion that's in front of us.
There's an element, I think, in what you were asking of the manager that just listening to your very well delivered thoughts, remarks, he's unable to say, which is that there would be reliably, predictably, no degradation in our effectiveness in seeking our appropriations for this coming year. I think you've said that there may well be, and we'll do our best to prevent that from interfering, dissipate the headwinds to the best of our ability. I guess I would also observe, we all know this, we've built good relationships on our own, and as you said, we go up there with credibility, all by ourselves. So there's that. But I don't know how material at the end, when the decisions are finally being made in close calls. I believe from my own experience that having that credible person nudging the decision makers at the very end of the process is something that we don't do and probably can't do.
And that's why you have lobbyists.
That's right.
Okay. Is the direction clear, Mr. Manager?
I'm waiting for that direction.
Okay. So what we have before us, well, yes, but are you clear as to what is being said?
No, I'm very clear, and I'm very attentive to what the discussion is, yes.
Okay. All right. Is everyone on the day is clear what we're voting on?
The counter suggestion of deferral, of making a decision to terminate this relationship after this session is not on the table at present.
No.
What's on the table at present is an immediate separation of ways.
It's two parts, yes. It's accepting the resignation with the condition of we cut ties immediately.
And that we go to work right away and figuring out what our next response is.
Would there be an appetite to make it a two-part?
Well, what's not on the table is the later in time separation.
If it fails, then you can come back and make that.
Okay.
All right. All those in favor of accepting the resignation letter and moving expeditiously,
Effective immediately.
Effective immediately, say aye.
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 Opposed?
On the basis of my sense that
sorry.
this is an overreaction, I would oppose.
And Councilmember London, I can't hear you.
You're muted.
Hello?
Yeah. What is your vote, sir?
Yes.
To terminate. Yes? Okay.
Okay.
We got a decision.
Motion carries.
Any other comments for the good of the order?
Just, the database on who's in this space, who's doing business on behalf of Miami-Dade municipalities, there are people. Let's start reaching out.
Absolutely. Motion to adjourn? Move. Seconded. All those in favor say aye. We're adjourned.